Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to HDI's Customer Service Week webinar series. Today's HDI webcast is CEM meets ITSM with Julie Mohr. And it's going to be a good one, I can tell you. Today's webinar is sponsored by Sharewell Software, and we thank Sharewell for their participation. I'm Roy Atkinson, and I'll be your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. If you experience any difficulty with the webinar itself, you can get help by clicking on the green question mark at the bottom of your screen. And you can participate in the Q&A session by asking questions at any time during this webcast. Click on the red QA button and just type your question into the Ask a Question text area below the video window, and then click the Submit button. At this time, we recommend that you disable your pop-up blockers. There will be one pop-up window late in the webinar. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and you can also download a copy of the slides by clicking on the Download Slide button located below the presentation window. So if you want to go explore where that is, we get a lot of questions about whether or not you can download the slides. You might want to download the slides right now. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit the Help Guide by clicking on the Help link below the media player. In addition, you can contact our technical support helpline, which is also located on the webcast Help Guide. Remember that today's webinar will be available on demand after 24 hours, and you'll receive an email reminder to let you know that it's available. That's the other frequent question that we get. It will be available on demand after 24 hours. You can connect with HDI on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or on HDI Connect, where you can read a blog, ask a question, or find a solution. And there's the Twitter hashtag, and at ThinkHDI is where you can find the HDI official Twitter feed. With us today to tell us more about our sponsor, Sharewell Software, is Gerard Green. Gerard is Vice President, Product Marketing at Sharewell Software. Gerard joined Sharewell with 10 years of IT industry experience at Gartner. During his tenure at Gartner, he initially served as a client engagement specialist and ultimately as an ITSM industry analyst. And Gerard was responsible for coverage of ITSM processes, organizational structures, and enabling ITSM technologies. Gerard has a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Trinity College and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Georgia. Great to have you on with us today, Gerard. It's all yours.
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. Glad to be here with you guys. And go Dogs. Shout out to anyone from the University of Georgia. I am here with Sharewell Software on behalf of Sharewell Software. Many of you may know or be aware of Sharewell Software. We're the providers of Sharewell Service Management, an IT service management platform that's been widely recognized by key industry analyst firms, namely Gartner, Forrester. We've done an extreme amount of work with HDI. So again, if you're familiar with us, we appreciate you, and if you're not, we'd love to introduce ourselves to you. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Sharewell and where we come from and what we do. Our mass transformational purpose is the slide you see in front of you. We are the world's engine that accelerates the achievement of organizational purpose. And what that means is that there's a meta purpose to what we do at Sharewell. We ultimately believe that we don't look good unless you look good as the customer. And so as a customer, whatever your organizational purpose is, our goal is to help you achieve that. And so again, that's our mass transformational purpose. That's what drives us. That's what fuels us each and every day. And when we walk into our new building in Colorado Springs, it is hung above the doorway, so we can actually see and indulge that every single day. A few highlights about Sharewell. We're about 1,400 customers worldwide. There's about 300 employees who work for Sharewell. Over a 5-year period, we've seen a CAGR of about 1,100%, almost 1,200% at this juncture, which has been amazing. We've been acknowledged in the Deloitte Fast 500 as one of the fastest growing companies. We're tied with LinkedIn as far as that growth is concerned. The first Cherwell product sold was in 2007. We've been profitable just about ever since then, every quarter since 2008. I mentioned our headquarters is in Colorado Springs. We're located there, but there's offices in Denver. There's offices in Germany, Seattle, Australia, and also partners who help scale across the globe as well. We have customers in over 40 countries. There is a minority investment in Cherwell, about $25 billion by our partner Insight Venture Partners, and that money is not used to grow the business. Ultimately, it provides us the flexibility to go out and meet the needs of our customers. That's a brief overview of Cherwell, the company. Ultimately, there's three views or three perceptions of Cherwell. I think it starts with the internal Cherwell view. And what you can see is, again, founded in 2004. They talked about the first sale in 2007. But founded in 2004, we've been profitable and debt-free ever since. When you look at the leadership team at Cherwell, there's over 250 years of ITSM experience. It starts with our CEO and co-founder, Mr. Vance Brown, who some of you may know from his time at Front Range, where he was the CEO of the Front Range Solutions, the IT service management company. Also, our president of sales, support, and marketing, Craig Harper, has joined. He is now with Cherwell Software. He joined last year. Craig joins us from other IT service management companies. Craig's been at BMC, more recently ServiceNow. And there's also members of our team in development, customer support, marketing. Everyone's been in the ITSM industry for quite a long time. So we know a thing or two about a thing or two. We're very proud to bring our expertise and knowledge to the product each and every single day. So that's the internal Cherwell view. We could advance to the next slide. What you can also see is there's an industry view of Cherwell. So again, I mentioned in the beginning that we've been acknowledged by firms like Gartner, firms like Forrester. Specifically, when you look at the 2014 Forrester Wave SaaS delivery, Cherwell was a leader in that space. For the most recent Gartner IT Service Support Management Magic Quadrant, Cherwell was named the only challenger. So we're the only challenger in that quadrant to some of the legacy vendors that exist in the space. IDC's market scope, Cherwell was named the fastest growing vendor as far as revenue is concerned. So to be the fastest ITSM growing vendor was quite an accomplishment. I'm very proud of the work we've done there. Some of you may have seen the IT service management review document around customization or customizability of service management tools. That exercise was completed last year. Cherwell was found to be the most customizable solution out of the 19 tools reviewed. So ultimately, we take pride in being able to give you a solution that's flexible, highly customizable, and configurable, that does not break during upgrades. And you also don't need skilled expertise to do the customization and configuration within Cherwell. And we provide a codeless environment for you to get the look and feel and functionality required from your investment. So proud of that work as well. Earlier this year, in 2015, Cherwell won Team's Innovation of the Year Award, and that was given for our MAPS solutions or our mergeable app solutions. Mergeable applications are extensions, capabilities, integrations that Cherwell customers build, Cherwell development builds, Cherwell partners build that add value to your Cherwell investment. The analogy would be an app store for your phone, but the Map Exchange is the means to get those maps or mergeable applications and bring those into your install with self-service capabilities. No professional services required. Wizard-driven interface to now have new capabilities in your Cherwell product, regardless of which version of the product you're on. So innovative capabilities acknowledged by Pink in that organization. And then market share gain as far as mind share in year-over-year HDI salary and support survey data. We've seen Cherwell be the tool leveraged by more and more organizations based on the feedback you provide to HDI in that annual survey. So we go to the next slide. I think it's most important, yes, to acknowledge the Cherwell view internally and acknowledge the industry view. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what most validates Cherwell is the customer view. We're very proud of the fact that we have a 98.4% retention rate. We serve customers. Our goal is, again, to make sure our customers are successful, and we truly enter into valued business partnerships with our customers. I won't read verbatim what some of our customers have said. You can see some of these quotes. But again, to have a 98.4 retention rate in any space for any market is incredible, and we're very proud of that work and very happy with the success we've been able to drive for our customers. And so, again, with it being Customer Service Week, we just want to, again, thank the folks here on HDI for allowing us the opportunity to sponsor and speak to the audience today. And with that, I will close and be available if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Gerard, and thanks to Cherwell Software for sponsoring the webcast. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
And now for our featured presentation. Julie Mohr is well known to HDI audience from her previous webinars and her roles as an instructor and conference speaker. She's president of Mind the IT Gap, and she's currently pursuing her PhD in Management and Organizational Leadership in Information Systems and Technology at University of Phoenix. She received her master's in education from University of Phoenix. That's university, if I can say it correctly, and her BS in computer science from The Ohio State University. She's an ITIL expert, certified help desk instructor, and a certified help desk director, and a certified IT governance professional. Need some more credentials there, Jewel. Thanks for being with us today. We really appreciate it, and it's all yours.
Thanks, Roy. And because Jared said it. Anyway, it's wonderful to be here today, and this is a topic that, to me, I'm very passionate about bringing in concepts to service management that help us to really drive change within our industry. And customer experience management is a very well-defined kind of domain of knowledge that is really, all by itself, it has a tremendous amount of following, and the value behind it is well documented, focusing in on the customer. And what I wanted to do was really understand how customer experience management could be used from within a service management perspective. And when I look at, the primary concepts around service management, if we look at the service life cycle where we're establishing strategy, we design a service, and then we build, test, and transition that service. And then, most of us are in the support industry where our major responsibility is then delivering upon those expectations. And so I kind of wanted to use that same service management life cycle approach to really look at how we could integrate customer experience management in with the major philosophies and concepts within IT service management. So we often hear this expression that the customer is always right. And I think, that the answer to that is, we spend a lot of time building organizations that are meant to give our customers a level of service, giving them exactly what they need. And what I learned the most about customer experience management is that our customers are not always right. And we're not always great at serving our customers either. And when we kind of look at not just what are we doing well, but analyzing our behavior as an organization when we don't do stuff well, and understanding what we can do to empower ourselves exactly at that moment when we can tell that a customer experience is not as positive as it should be, we can make a real difference. And when you look at that as it relates to service management, and we have these formal, incident management processes mapped out where we show how we're using our technology, and, it's really about making sure that we own all incidents. But what happens when, a particular issue that we're working on with a customer doesn't follow that incident management process? What are we empowered as individuals to do at that point? So the official definition of customer experience management, this comes by Schmidt, who's the primary author of this, And I don't read slides very often, but for me this is a very important phrase or terminology here that kind of really made it important. And if you look at, there's a lot of words in this definition that translate well to IT service management. What managers need is an approach that takes the customers seriously, finally. Such an approach would provide a view of the total customer experience. It would focus not only on the functional product features and functional transactions, but also on anything else that provides value during decision-making, purchase, and usage. And I look at that, and I see something that translates very well to IT service management. We have incident management that can often focus on transactional interactions with our customers. But if we begin to look at how else we can look at the incident management process to drive some of this value, to provide something meaningful to our customers, it's a little different than what service management does on its own. So the service management, customer experience management approach really starts with understanding what products and services that we provide to our customers, how well those are delivered to our customers. We have to look at, what is it that drives profits for our company and align that to that. I think you guys are going to have to advance the slides for me. There we go. I'm caught up here. All right, so we need to understand what drives profits for firms, and then look at the way that we can strategically manage that customer experience with that product and make sure that it is delivering on the expectations to the customer. And when I look at customer experience management and the way that that then applies to IT service management, next slide, please. The first thing that we do is we analyze the customers, their world. What is it that our customers are doing within their business process? How are they using our IT services? And it's very important for us to get in touch with what our customers are doing with our IT services so that we better understand the outcomes that they want to achieve. So that maps very well to the first step within the customer experience framework. Then we build our platform, and this is really about designing service management in a way that delivers upon those expectations to the customer. And then we want to structure it, in particular, the customer interface. And this is where incident management and request fulfillment, those processes within service management that have a direct contact with the customer, structuring those in a way that allow us to provide value to the customer. And then, of course, continuously improving. Next slide. So when I look at each of those steps, I see, the first thing is we need to do is analyze the customer's their world. What is it they're doing? We need to develop insight into how they're using our IT products and services to do their jobs. The better we understand how they're using those IT services, the better that we can structure processes and service that deliver upon those expectations. Next slide. So from a customer experience perspective, when we define the experience, this is really about developing the insight, analyzing the social context of that, developing an understanding of their needs. From an IT perspective, we have to understand what are the support needs of our customers, what services are they using, and how can we successfully deliver end-user satisfaction. This requires us to work with the business, identify the long-term needs for services and support. Next slide. We're like 2 slides behind still, guys. So designing the experience. What we want to do is, from a customer experience management, understand the aesthetics of products and services, right? Customer experience management is really much more focused on the products and services that we provide externally to customers. When I look at it from an IT perspective, we want to design a great multi-channel customer experience, right? Providing the option to go to self-service, providing them the option to come in via the phone or submit tickets or self-service. That multi-channel experience is something where our customers have the ability to interact with us in a way that's, beneficial to them. So, again, every step of the way through the customer experience, kind of the landscape of what we do within customer experience management translates very well into IT service management. So from a customer experience management perspective, next slide. I'm on slide 23 of the presentation, and you guys are still on 17. It's not advancing for me. So from a customer experience perspective, we're looking at product features, aesthetics. This is where a company would put emphasis in on logos, packaging, their retail spaces, making sure that there's an experience, the messaging, the imagery of working with that company. Apple's a great example of how their brand image translates across their website, their products. You don't question when you pick up an Apple product that it's an Apple product. It's got everything built into that connects with that customer experience. So if I look at that from an IT perspective, we need to be able to design satisfaction into that model. And, as I said, our customers are not always right, but we don't always deliver on the expectations with the customer. So if we analyze all those touch points, whether they come in via the web, email, phone, what marketing materials we do use, the scripts that we use, how we leverage voicemail when we're interacting with our customers, we can develop a much more streamlined, branded experience across those multiple channels. So that no matter where our customer interacts with us, they will have the value of that experience, having that same customer feel about it, experience about it across all of the multiple points in which our customers can come in. This requires us to look at all of our processes, and one of the things that I really like doing is mapping the customer experience map to incident management. It's a very, you'll see some of these customer experience maps later on in the presentation, and looking at what can go wrong and what should we do when it does go wrong. It really empowers the organization to take every touch point and make a difference and have a branded experience. Next slide. So the next step is to build your platform, and this is where from a customer experience management, we're looking at building a dynamic, something that's constantly adapting, a desired experience for our customers that creates value. From an IT service management perspective, I need to understand what makes a difference to my customers. I could make the assumption that if I restore the service as quickly as possible, which is the goal of incident management, that would be meaningful to my customers. Or I could go ask them, is it important to you that it gets solved as quickly as possible, or is regular communication and status and update information most important? So we really have to understand from a customer's perspective, what is it that makes a difference during the incident management process that creates value for the customers. Next slide. So the next step is then to validate the experience, and this is really when we look at service management, it's around the transition of the service. This is where we now build, test, and implement our intentional and consistent experience that we have now designed. We want to make sure all of the interaction points have a very structured approach to them, that they all follow the designed approach, and incorporate our vision and mission, but also have the same look and feel so that the customers get a consistent experience across all of those different channels. We want to structure the content. Traditionally we send email messages out that may be too technical for our customers. We might choose other forums for communicating more technical details, but whatever it is, we want to make sure that we understand that customer experience. It's now built, tested, and implemented so that it provides that seamless, customer experience across any of the channels that our customers are using. Next slide. So structuring the customer interface from a customer experience management means that we want to have dynamic, interactive, transactions with our customers. But from an IT perspective, that means our email, our chat, our self-service, our phone, our IVR, any social media, and in addition, the people that we're using in the organization are all on the same page. we really need to have that consistency between our people. We know that our people make a difference. We've known this for years, that really the best part about customer service is the people that are delivering it. Even when we can't come up with an answer, if our people handle those transactions with the customers well, they will have a decent customer experience. So we need to address the technology aspect of that, but we also have to make sure all of our people are empowered to make a difference. Next slide. Now, the next step is then delivering on that experience, and this is where operation kicks in the IT service management lifecycle. So from a CEM perspective, we had to develop the original insight, analyze it, develop an understanding. From an IT context, this is where we begin delivering that customer service, managing customer satisfaction, and really becoming an advocate of our customers. Don't ultimately forget either that while we're delivering on a transactional nature with our customer, we also need to keep that in line with the value that we provide to the business. And that means prioritizing what we work on and delivering on, what's most important to the business and focusing our efforts where we can create that value. Next slide, please. The next part of the customer experience framework is then engaging in continuous innovation. And here's where, the measurement and getting feedback from our customers really does a great job of helping us to understand where the improvements lie. So if I look at the incident management process and I think about what potential errors can go wrong within incident management, one of the most common things that frustrates our customers is when a ticket will get escalated to the wrong group. We experience delays. The customer may not get information back in a timely manner. What happens when the organization does something like that? How often does it happen? How much wait time is then introduced into the support process because of that? Once we identify that we have a failure point in a process, what can we do to change that? We may not be able to completely stop mis-escalations to the wrong group, but how can we empower those people that will get a ticket to making a difference for the customer at that point? So once we map out this more intentional customer-driven experience and we begin to measure and monitor the success of that, we also have to drive the continuous improvement. This means improving the processes, but then also using that information to feed back into the way that we develop our services, and that gets back to feeding back into the design stage. So this is really the CSI stage of the life cycle. It's where we're improving our service levels, better managing customer expectations, improving the image of IT, and the alignment of IT with the business. Next slide. One more. So this is an experience map, and this comes from the traditional customer experience framework. And I want to kind of take a minute to describe what's going on here with this customer experience map, because then I'm going to show you one that's used in IT service management. So when you look at the graph, immediately you see anything above the neutral line, which is shaded in shades of blue, is where we're helping the customer feel very positive. Anything below that is a negative feeling. And this represents coming into Starbucks. And I think it's important to kind of take a look at this for a little bit to understand that there are things that influence the customer that aren't necessarily in our control that will create negative feelings for our customers. It's what we can do about that at that time that makes a difference. So, for example, there's all kinds of locations. This is great. You are able to find a Starbucks without a problem. You come in. The staff are, hi, how are you doing? They're very friendly. These are all things that keep the customer on that, the happy side. Immediately when you come into Starbucks, you can smell the coffee. There's music going on in the background. But then the customer sees the long line. Now, we can't, necessarily do anything about how many customers we have in the store. And so this is one of those times where the customer is now experiencing dissatisfaction, and we want to do whatever we can to change that. We can't, shuffle them ahead in the line, but what is it that we can do to intentionally change that experience to help the customer feel better? If you've ever been to Starbucks, you know that they'll have people that will start taking orders so that the drinks get lined up faster. They do a variety of different things to help alleviate that long queue, and that's meant to help that person kind of manage their expectations around when the coffee, when they'll get to the end of the order. And then as you go through this, they've got the payment now. You can use your phone. You can use Apple Pay. There's a lot of little things that make that experience more enjoyable. But then there's a long wait to get the coffee. How they're all everybody's standing around waiting for their coffee. So when we look at this, we can't do a whole lot about what's happening in the red. These are things that are going to happen in a Starbucks experience on occasion. You're going to go in, there's going to be a long queue. But if you look at the way that they're interacting with their customers during that time, then you can see how it is built to help bring the customer from that negative experience up to a positive experience. Next slide, please. So this is an example of an actual customer experience map that I did, and it just represents, I was asked to come in and help an organization map out their customer experience and identify what was, going wrong. And this is one of the most negative customer experiences that I was able to map. And notice that there's a lot of things that the company did that the person was very happy about. It was free to download. The installation process was really great, but then they experienced an issue, and they had a knowledge base. So they were happy again that they could self-serve. They then moved the installation into the production environment. They hit a conflict. So they submitted a ticket to the IT department. They got a very quick response. They asked for more information, and then everything went really wrong. The IT department couldn't solve it. There were time zone delays, language difficulties, and at some point they closed the ticket without ever notifying the customer. So the customer had to actually reopen the ticket, and it's 6 months later, and it's still unresolved. Now, this is an example of we can't eliminate the problems that they're going to have in their installation. This is going to happen sometimes. And we also can't eliminate the conflict, because if you offer software products, you never know what their environment's going to be like. But how we manage that customer experience from that point where they have a negative experience really says a lot about our company. And this was one of those experiences where the person even said to me, if I could get this software for somewhere else, I would have done it, and I would not be a customer. So next slide, please. This is the same company with a very similar experience, but they changed the outcome by doing just a few things differently. So notice download for free, they're happy. They installed it into the enterprise, and they had some issues. They then moved it into production. They had a clustering problem, which again brought them into the negative side. They submitted a ticket again. They got that quick response. So it was great that the IT organization was responding very quickly, but then they hit that same, notice that down path of we can't solve it, we're trying to provide, and it went for a long period of time being unresolved. But notice the difference here is that the person trying to solve this with the customer said, I'm going to escalate this to the developer, and the developer picked up the phone and called them. They immediately came up with a workaround. And they were able to automate the workaround. They basically told me, we're glad that there's a workaround and we're able to automate it, but this issue should really be resolved. So they were still unhappy. But then eventually the IT department found the workaround. It was resolved. They did a site visit. They better repaired that relationship. And so by pointing out the previous diagram and how things could really go wrong, with this experience, with just a few changes in the way that they were managing the incident management process, you can change your customer experience from being a negative one, into something more positive. Next slide, please. So when the benefit of customer experience management and integrating all of these concepts that I've just talked about with IT service management is that we really do integrate IT better with what the business. Across all the decisions we're making, we better understand what the customer needs. We make decisions during the different processes based upon those the needs of the customer. And then we're able to find ways to improve that can go back into the design stage of the life cycle so that we're designing services from the very beginning that are much more integrated with how the customer uses those services within their jobs. So it's a very, I really like the way that customer experience management applies, especially to the incident management process, in helping us to change the way in which we work within service management. Next slide, please. So customer experience tells us that we need to really engineer an experience for our customers where we have a vision of what we want to provide, that we distinguish what we do from our competitors, and where we truly become, advocates of our customers. And from an IT service management perspective, this is delivering support that rocks, that our customers are just so happy and delighted about how we provide that support. Next slide, please. So essentially what we are wanting to do is to go from the random experience to something that's driving customer loyalty. When we put in an incident management process, we essentially move from a random experience into a predictable experience. And this is great. It's intentional. It's consistent. Our customers know what to expect. And what customer experience management does for IT service management is it really moves it up to much more of a branded experience. It's consistent and it's intentional, but it's also differentiated and valuable. The customers really think that the process serves their needs well, and that's what will drive customer loyalty within the organization. Next slide, please. Now, this is a study that was done around what our customers really feel drives a better experience. And when we look at things like, offshore call centers, we know that these kinds of things will really upset customers. There's a variety of reasons why that happens, but that's the most negative thing that the customers feel impacts that. Customers also do not like IVRs. We over-engineer these things because the tools have the capabilities of providing this, very in-depth experience, and we can send them to all these different queues. Customers really don't like them. So it's not something that translates into value. But when they get a hold of good support and they're able to have access to that support, that's the one thing that changes their experience with the company. And then look at the thing that has the most positive impact to the customer: well-trained people. And I know if I look at my own habits as a consumer, if a product or service fails me and I have to call into their call center or their service desk and I hit an IVR, I'm going to be unhappy. And I'm going to be angry whenever anybody picks up that phone. It's just the natural tendency of having to deal with the technology and then, getting somebody on the phone who doesn't understand what you're trying to explain to them is a very frustrating experience. And we build incident management processes this way because they're less expensive. You have, people on the level one that are not as highly technical. They're meant to catch as many calls as they possibly can and to solve a majority of them based on a less in-depth set of knowledge. And then if they can't solve it, they escalate it to level two. So in many cases for customers, if they get a hold of somebody that's brand new at the service desk, that will create a frustrating experience for them. And you'll often hear the customer say, well, when I get Tony at the service desk, he's great, right? So what they're distinguishing is the skill sets of the individual that they're interacting with. So we know this from our own consumer habits, that well-trained people on the other end of the phone, getting a hold of them and getting well-trained people really changed the customer experience. Next slide, please. So we need to create advocates from our customers. We want intentional, consistent, differentiated, and valuable experiences that, are not just an incident management process, but something that goes above and beyond that. Next slide, please. Now, leadership plays an incredibly important role in this because you and I both know that you might have expectations about changing things within an incident management process, but unless you get the buy-in of all of the technical support partners and management, you're not going to go very far with creating change in the environment. So leadership is critically important. You need a plan for how to change the process, and you have to think not just about the process itself, but also managing the cultural change The leadership needs to be passionate and excited about the changes that are going to, that you're about ready to introduce into the environment. So all of the standard stuff that we talk about that's incredibly important for changing a culture within an organization, you need to understand that just making subtle differences here and there to a process is not going to have the intended result. Customer experience management is about redesigning the way that we provide support, and to do so requires cultural change. It requires setting your goals and expectations, measuring and then marketing that success, not just internally, but definitely out to the customers as well. Next slide, please. So we need an advocacy team. I don't know about you, but from my practical experience as a manager, I always had a few people on the staff that were just gifted dealing with the customers. They didn't get upset. The customers just loved them. They always got these positive reviews. And it wasn't necessarily they were more technical than anybody else. They just had the customer service skills that were above and beyond. And those are great people to have as advocates for this because they know the little things that they do that differentiate how they interact with customers. And that's great information to bring into redesigning the process because you want to empower your service desk or help desk agents to make a difference while they're on the phone with the customer. So your advocacy team are the people that are going to be very proactive about whenever they see something going down into the negative part that's delivering a negative customer experience of about empowering a different experience. It's everything from, just replacing hardware, training, proactive communication, hands-on assistance during a rollout, anything that can take what's happening within the experience and create something that's much more positive. So your advocacy team is incredibly important. Again, remember, what makes a difference to our customers is the people. So empowering them to make a difference is really about, being able to differentiate what we do. Now, as far as loyalty is concerned with our customers, if we look, superior products and services definitely help. Low cost or low cost of ownership is not as important to our customers, but high quality interactions with the people in the organization. That is, again, the highest rated thing by our customers that drives the loyalty of having them come back to our organization. And so we want to have high-quality interactions throughout the incident management process that drive that. Next slide, please. Sorry, I forgot to tell them. There's the graph that goes along with that. So again, the most important thing to us, but also to our customers, high-quality interactions with our people. Next slide. So looking at across all of our touch points, if you're offering a web interface, if you're offering some amount of email interactions and support, most of us probably have some sort of phone support. Looking at each one of those touch points and saying, okay, how does our customer interact with this? How can we differentiate that experience? How can we brand it to really drive the success for the customer? We want to embed it into any marketing material. So if you have for example, a service catalog, and you're presenting that to your customers, whatever that branded experience is should translate into that customer touch point because that's where they come to find out what services we provide. It makes sense that is, part of marketing. The scripts that we use with the customer on the phone, how we say what we say when we're interacting with the customers is important. And again, we see when we have somebody that really knows what they're doing and has the right training, that interaction can go very differently. So if we can map out better scripts for those who may not be handling those interactions well, then we get more consistency. And voicemail, we provide voicemail as an alternative when things are really kind of high volume. What is that voicemail message? Do we convey any information to them that would be valuable to them at that point? So looking at all those touch points and understanding how we can create value, and again, the customer experience, Matt, is an important part of that. Next slide, please. All right, so this is an incident management process, and this is the very beginning of it where we detect that there's an incident, And we have a lot of technology at the front end of this that's meant to avoid customers calling in. So notice that we can either have a ticket coming in through self-service or our customers are calling in. They hit the automated call distribution system. They get their broadcast message. If we're using that broadcast message as a way to avoid the customer, meaning giving them information to proactively allow them to go back and do something else, they can call back later, that kind of thing. That's a technique that helps us with efficiency with incident management. Skills-based routing is another technology that we can use in the telephony systems that allow the customer to, push on, particular buttons that help them to get to the appropriate technician. Next slide. So if I look at this and map this to a customer experience map, and I think, okay, what are the things that can go right and can go wrong? I see can't access my email. My customer's already upset, but they may go to self-service. They don't find a solution. Now they're back in the unhappy part. So now they go talk to their peers. Usually when people go and talk to their coworkers, there's a lot of social interaction with that. So they're, not necessarily unhappy, but then they can't find any resolution, talking to their peers. So they call the service desk. They're happy. They get the status message. Then they hit that multi-level IVR, and there's that long wait time. So this is looking at a customer experience map mapped to that same incident management process. And what you see below this, the positive things that we can do as an organization to influence the customer and the things that we can do that negatively impact the customer. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these slides because it's not the intent to really pick apart the incident management process. I'm very happy to hear that you guys can download these slides because I think there's some value in looking at what I've developed here around mapping a customer experience to the incident management. But go through the next couple slides and just show them the pictures. I'm not going to talk much about them, but the incident recording slide is next. This shows you a sample incident management process for the recording of a new incident. Next slide. You'll see the customer experience mapped to that with the positive and negative things that we can do to contribute to that experience. The next slide shows us the classification and matching that happens in a traditional incident management process. And then the next slide shows you the customer experience map that maps to that. The next slide is where we're using level 1, level 2, maybe a support partner to help us with the analysis and resolution. And again, I highly encourage you to take a look at the process in detail to kind of see what a little bit more in-depth incident management process looks like rather than the one that you get strictly out of the ITIL service management books. So you'll get a little bit more detail there. But then the next slide shows you the customer experience map mapped to that. What are the things that we can do that could negatively impact during that time where we're doing that resolution? The next slide shows us the escalation if we have to send it to management, if we have to send it to a more technical resource, what typically happens during that incident management process. And then, of course, the next slide shows us the customer experience map to that. The last one is the closure, which we all know is very important for capturing knowledge and helping us to improve incident management. And once again, I've provided a customer experience map to that final closure and transfer of knowledge back to level 1. So I highly encourage you guys, download these maps, print them out in a full slide format and really look at that because I think there's a lot of value in looking at the ways in which we can create value during that experience. So start with the incident management process. That's the one that has the biggest influence on our customers' expectations around the products and services that we provide. Look at each of your touch points. If you have your incident management process mapped out like that, then you can look at how your organization can influence at each one of those touch points. If they're having a negative experience, what can we do at that touch point to create a positive? Make sure you have metrics that not just are focused on your service level attainments, but what happens during those touch points to help you avoid the negative things that are occurring. One of the examples is mis-escalations. If you're sending it to the wrong group, what have you done to improve that? What have you done to make a difference when it does happen, and measure that and determine whether or not your organization is really making a difference. Next slide, please. So I'm very well known for setting lofty goals, but I like to get a perfect 5.0 on my customer satisfaction ratings just because I want my customers to be that happy with the products and services that I provide. And so anytime I don't get a 5.0, I mope around for a week. But it's one of those things where if you expect less, if you set a goal of, oh, gee, I'd like to get a 4.5, then you're expecting to not give a perfect experience. And when I look at those customer experience maps, it's really not about a perfect, meaning eliminating all the error. It's about making sure that our customers at the end of that experience are very happy with the way that we managed it. Because we have to remember, the service went down. There's not a whole lot we can do about it at this point. But what we do and how we interact with our customers is really what makes the difference. So we want metrics that not only translate into efficiency and effectiveness, but the value that we provide to the customer. Next slide, please. So some of the obstacles that organizations have experienced with customer experience management. The business processes aren't well understood. It's not delivering or doesn't allow us to really deliver the quality experience. The technology lets us down, and we do have technology that gets older and antiquated, and it just doesn't run properly. The customer strategy is not focused on something that would want to deliver value to the customers. And, of course, we've talked quite a bit about our employees. Complexity, I think, is the biggest thing that impacts us in IT. We want to do better, but just the sheer complexity of the way that we run our infrastructures lends itself to errors that, we just can't avoid. And, of course, the last one there is cost. Next slide. So in summary, I just want to say that I think IT service management is a very valuable initiative for many organizations to look at. Just coming up with consistency in the way that we approach our customer, common language, focused on common outcomes from an incident management or problem management perspective. But when I look at customer experience management, this is where we go from that intended repeatable and consistent experience into something that really drives value for the customer. And a lot of the other frameworks that are out there, such as KCS for knowledge management, any quality, focus on quality assurance, Six Sigma, COBIT, these are all ways that can help drive whenever we find these error points that aren't working well. These are things that we can bring to the table that will help us to eliminate errors in processes, better empower our agents to be knowledgeable with the customer. But customer experience management is the one that pulls all of that together, looking at the way that we provide that experience across every touch point. And, this is where I think that we can really now begin to leverage service management focused on the value that we derive for our customers. And that's it. Next slide.
Julie, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, and I apologize for you having some difficulty moving the slides ahead. We did get that taken care of, and your presentation was terrific, so thank you. We do have a couple of questions for you. First of all, I'd like to remind people they can download the slides from this presentation by clicking on the yellow button in the little dock at the bottom of your screen. It's right smack in the middle. You can download the slides right there. And as Julie said, it's a good idea to do that today. So let's get to a question. Julie, can the act of doing a customer experience map itself be therapeutic and educational for the service desk?
Oh, absolutely. It was interesting, the two examples that I showed you, when I went into the final presentation with the client, and I said, here's two experiences that have happened in your company. And the gentleman said, I remember this specifically, well, just one experience that's negative isn't indicative of the way that we provide support. And I said, you're kind of missing the point of doing a customer experience map. It's not about whether every experience is like this. It's about how have we as an organization built and structured the way that we interact and make a difference with our customers. What do we do when things don't follow the intended process? Because this is the time when we're going to make the most mistakes. And I think that was very therapeutic for the group to understand that not every experience was bad, but when they do go bad and they're really bad, that has a potential loss of a customer. And so the act of going through this and having people focus in on the incident management process, other than just checking the boxes, yeah, I documented the ticket, I did everything he asked me to do, what did you do when you heard from the customer, oh, this is really frustrating me, this has taken so long? Our customers are reaching out and they're saying the customer experience has not been positive. What did we do at that moment? One of my favorite things that happens to me at Starbucks when the line is really long, I get a free coffee a lot of times. I'm there all the time. They know me. They said, Julie, we're really sorry for making you wait. This one's on us. That's something where I'm going to be an advocate for life, because even when things go wrong, they do the right thing with their customers. And I think that's what this customer experience management really does, is it helps us to focus on, we can't be perfect all the time. What do we do when we're not perfect?
Right. Great. Thank you so much. There is a survey that popped up on your screen, attendees, and if you could please fill that out. We appreciate your feedback and the experiences you had today, and thank you again to Julie and to Cherwell for sponsoring the webcast today. Coming up tomorrow as part of the continuing Customer Service Week series, we will have Mary Cruz, and she's going to be talking about coaching for customer service. Don't miss that one. We appreciate your attendance. And you will receive a personalized email from us telling you when this webcast is available on demand. You can't download a recording, but you can come back and listen to it on demand. So please do that. Review it with your teams, and have a great Customer Service Week. Thank you so much for coming today.